Hi, I'm George Gerbo, and welcome to Washington Times Weekly, where we get a chance to sit down with our reporters and talk about their coverage of the latest news and events. And joining me once again is Washington Times cultural reporter Sean Salai. It's good to see you, Sean.
Great to be with you, George.
Let's start with the D.C. Council, which has just repealed an ordinance and some of their rules recently that have restricted what landlords have been able to collect from renters. The council has had policies in place since the pandemic that protected renters, but as you've written about, landlords have said they've lost nearly $1 billion in rent and other violations that have been accumulating in the course of the time that these restrictions have been in place. And now it appears that D.C. Council has finally relaxed some of these restrictions that were meant to give renters some grace during the pandemic, but now 4+ years on it's come time for those to be relaxed.
Yeah, over $1 billion, actually. The advocacy group representing multifamily housing units in D.C. reported this week that they estimate over $1 billion in losses since September 2021. And in September 2021, a federal moratorium on evictions during the pandemic was lifted. But what happened after that is the D.C. Council chose to leave in place these emergency eviction policies. And so the time it takes to evict a tenant who's delinquent or a deadbeat tenant, so to speak, who isn't paying his or her rent has now lengthened to 18 months to 2 years to remove that person from a housing unit. D.C. Council Chairman Phil Mendelson has estimated that 1 in 5 housing units that are rental units in the District of Columbia are economically vacant, which means that either nobody's living there or the person who's living there isn't paying rent. And so in February, Mayor Muriel Bowser introduced a measure in the D.C. Council to speed up the process of evicting deadbeat tenants to what it used to be before the pandemic. And just recently, we had the D.C. Council vote 10-3 to lift some of the restrictions. What they ended up settling on was a compromise. So now local judges will be empowered to collect back rent from tenants after they receive a complaint from landlords that they're not paying. And the local judges can also set the amount of the rent or adjust it in order to get the tenants paying their rent. Now, the problem is that there's no enforcement mechanism in place here. Some of the landlord advocates wanted the D.C. Council to include a deadline of 60 days, that when you get a complaint from a landlord filed in a court, you have within 60 days to appear in court to challenge that, and that would begin the process of repayment. The D.C. Council said they can't do that, even though they set similar deadlines in cases involving spousal abuse and mental health complaints and other issues in the city. So at the moment, it's a wait and see. By this time in June, we could have a situation where evictions have increased substantially, or we could have basically the status quo. And the D.C. landlords are now calling on the council to introduce a separate bill setting timelines. It's not clear yet whether local judges in the D.C. Superior Court will have the ability to enforce deadlines, but at the moment it's taking months to get these delinquent tenants into court. And so that's the struggle that's in place right now.
Let's move to the world of artificial intelligence, which has enveloped so many different applications across our livelihoods, businesses, social media. The Federal Trade Commission is looking into one of those applications that you've written about, and it's kind of an interesting topic where specifically teenagers are becoming more and more at risk of developing AI relationships with these chatbots, and the Federal Trade Commission is seeking to investigate that and make sure that it doesn't go too far to the point where it could be harming those teenagers. Is that correct?
That's correct. So the Boston-based company Aura, which produces an app that helps parents monitor their children's social media activity, put out a study recently that found most of the time teenagers spend with AI companions is actually directed at a sexual or romantic nature. So AI companions are chatbot programs that are designed to basically mimic human behavior. So you'll have a chatbot that adopts a human name, it adopts a human personality. And in some cases, young people turn to these chatbots for advice about emotional issues. In some cases, they turn to them for information or help with their studies. But what we found is that the vast majority of these chatbots that are quote unquote AI companions are actually talking to them in a romantic nature, and the young people are treating them as kind of sexual or romantic partners. One of the big apps that is flagged in this issue is called Polybuzz, but the FTC, as you mentioned, recently sent a notice to all of the big tech giants, including Meta, including Snap, and basically saying to them, we're going to be probing this issue and we're investigating to see what have you done to keep children safe, what have you done to notify parents of potential issues with these programs. And people who are experts in the mental health sphere and experts in teenage behavior basically say that there's a great danger in these programs, that for years we've had a concern about students spending time on social media applications that track them, but now we have applications that are not only tracking them, but actually interacting with them. And one of the concerns that one of the FTC commissioners, Mark Mador, raised in his notice earlier this month was back in April, there was a 16-year-old boy who hanged himself after interacting with an AI companion or chatbot. And the chatbot basically told him he didn't owe it to anybody to sustain his life, and even recommended the right kind of load-bearing noose for the young man to hang himself. And so this has become a huge crisis, it's become a huge issue, and it's possible that this could lead to increased regulations for big tech companies in the future, but we're going to have to see where this FTC probe goes. The Trump administration has kind of given mixed signals about regulating big tech in the past, and so this is a new issue. It's unclear where things are going to move. But at the moment, the Trump Federal Trade Commission is kind of moving in a very negative direction towards this.
Let's wrap up with education. It's a field that you cover pretty extensively and going behind the scenes in terms of a lot of the challenges that are facing both K through 12 education and higher education in this country. A recent Gallup poll out showing that the adult approval of K through 12 education now at a record low. Some of the reasons, Sean, what are the things that are driving the public's perception of K through 12 education and the public's poor perception at that of schooling in this country?
Well, there's a couple factors. One is political and the other is simply results driven. So on the one hand, the Gallup poll has found that when your party is in the White House, you're more inclined to like the way K to 12 education is going. And so the recent poll found that 35% of adults in the United States who responded to the Gallup survey said that they are satisfied with K to 12 education. As you mentioned, that's a new low. The previous low was set in the year 2000 and the year 2023 when it was 36%. Now at the time, a lot of it was kind of Republicans moving against the Biden administration in 2023. In the latest poll, it's really a nosedive among Democrats and self-described independents that are driving it to the new low. So Democrats are kind of reacting against the Trump administration coming back into office, all of the things they're doing with K to 12 education. And so just 41% of Democrats approve of the state of K to 12 education under the Trump administration as of this month. At the same time, it decreased more slightly among Republicans, but only 29% of Republicans are happy with the state of K to 12 education. And a lot of that is driven by the fact that the test scores are abominable. Recently, we had the latest release from the National Assessment of Educational Progress, also known as the Nation's Report Card, which is a federally mandated standardized test that the Department of Education administers every few years. And in the 2024 test, a very small minority of high school seniors were proficient in math and reading, and the results in 4th and 8th grade math and English were also abysmal, and in most cases actually declined from 2022. So at the moment, we're facing a situation where 26% of those responding to the Gallup poll think that K to 12 education is heading in the right direction, and there's just a big well of discontent on all sides of the issue. There's been increases in homeschooling and public charter schools and other alternatives to traditional public school districts. So at the moment, if you're in K to 12 education, it's not a very happy time. There's been an acceleration in superintendents stepping down from their jobs over the past year that was recently reported as well. So especially in large urban school districts like Chicago, New York, Las Vegas, they've all had turnovers in their superintendents over the past year. And it's really too big an issue to even call a partisan issue at the moment. But we'll see if the scores turn around. We'll see if the K-12 education system can get a handle on this. At the moment, it's not looking very hopeful, and certainly the polling is bearing that out. So it's unknown whether this time next year it'll be improved or even worse.
Yeah, a lot of contributing factors. We know that you'll be keeping tabs on all of it for us, Sean. Appreciate the time as always. Thank you.
You're very welcome, George.
You can find all of Sean's work online at WashingtonTimes.com and on social media. I'm George Gerbo. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.